As we mentioned yesterday, Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy keeps using the I word. Here he was in an impromptu press conference saying this yesterday.
You can investigate that is through an impeachment inquiry, so the committee would have the power to get all the documents that they would need. What
There
I
you go.
said last night.
Impeachment inquiry. That's with reference to President Joe Biden. Yesterday, Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary at the White House, was asked about the impeachment inquiry. Watch what she had to say.
The House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, is talking more about starting an impeachment investigation into the president. What's your response to that? And if he did that, would that make any kind of cooperation with the House impossible going forward?
Look, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. I'm not going to get into what the House Republicans may or may not do. What I can speak to is what the president is focused on. He's focused on real priorities that the American families care about. He's focused on the American family, but they want to focus on his family. They can do whatever it is that
There you go. See, that was tested through all of their focus groups and all the geniuses at the White House. See, it's just about Biden's family, and we're focused on the American family. Let's bring in one of those House Republicans who will be a key player in whatever inquiry they decide to do in the House. He's Representative Ben Cline of Virginia. Well, you see how they're trying to diminish this. You're just trying to dig up dirt on his son, Congressman Cline. Is this really just about President Biden's son and his family?
It is not just about Hunter Biden, although he is a big player in what is a larger question about a sitting vice president and a sitting now president engaging in a pay-to-play operation with his family members, access to outside interests for large sums of money, not just from any countries, but from adversaries of the United States. So these are very big questions. And we're going to be getting to the bottom of it, whether it's through the Oversight Committee and James Comer or Homeland Security. And we have Secretary Mayorkas before Judiciary right now. And we're following up on the committee's investigation that they've been involved in for some time.
If you flip over to the other news programs tonight, certainly the ones that lean in a different political direction than this one does, you'll hear apologists there on the panel saying, well, there's no evidence. There's no evidence. There's just allegations, but no evidence. Sir, I don't know about you, but I saw some testimony last week that looked pretty much like evidence. I saw that document from the FBI involving the testimony of a confidential human source that sure looks like evidence. Have you seen evidence of impeachable offenses?
Absolutely. I was a prosecutor for many years, and testimony is evidence. And the testimony that we have is very disconcerting and raises several issues because it is evidence of violations of the law, and we have to follow those facts wherever they lead.
In any Washington, D.C. scandal over the decades, there's always three components to it: the crime, the cover-up, and the obstruction of justice. Based on what you've seen from the FBI and the way they have neglected any kind of serious investigation into what the IRS whistleblower said last week, and also the 1023 form that Senator Grassley exposed, do you believe that there is active obstruction of justice going on right now, especially considering that 1023 was redacted at the beginning by Christopher Wray, and I don't quite see what exactly needed to be redacted?
The testimony of the whistleblowers about obstruction of justice by the Department of Justice is serious and legitimate. And actually, we need to subpoena those individuals from DOJ, put them under oath, and have them testify about the actions that they took or didn't take to slow walk or allow these allegations to pass the statute of limitations on the crimes. I mean, if that's what's happening, then you have serious evidence of obstruction of justice.
Yeah. Now, there are calls by many people that it's time for a special counsel in this matter. They're calling on Attorney General Merrick Garland to appoint someone. Would you trust that process right now? Would you trust a veteran of the Justice Department to actually do a real investigation into the matters before you?
Given the slow walking of investigations of Democrats, given the aggressive over prosecution, the political prosecutions of Republicans, including Donald Trump, over his issues and the aggressive political prosecution in New York, I would have doubts about Merrick Garland having any ability to be trusted to appoint a special counsel who would be independent.
Also, if there were to be a move for a special counsel, you talk about the slow walking and sort of restarting the process all over again. Would you allow, or would you believe that a special counsel would impede the progress of congressional oversight and investigation, or would you just go on your own track regardless?
Well, that's an interesting question. We are interested in moving aggressively and moving swiftly, and I think that Congress can get to the bottom of a lot of it if we have cooperation from the Justice Department. If we don't, then you end up with a political kind of standoff, and a special counsel may be warranted to be able to get to the bottom of it. But I'm not sure that we've reached that point because Congress has essentially moved aggressively into an investigatory phase where the House
Yeah.
is gaining the information that we need.
And you're right, between oversight, judiciary, ways and means under Chairman Smith, and Homeland Security, there's multiple avenues right now that are being investigated, and all of them incredibly relevant. One other question on this, Congressman Cline. We're hearing reports out of the U.S. Senate from Republican senators. Won't put their name on these anonymous leaks quite yet, but they're saying, why put us through an impeachment right now? Because we don't have the votes to convict Biden in the Senate, so let's not play political games. How do you respond to that?
Well, former Senator Biden entered the Senate the year I was born. So he has long relationships with a lot of these senators, and it wouldn't surprise me if some of them don't want to or don't see the need to pursue one of their old friends from their days in the Senate. So there are a lot of those relationships that are going to come to bear in the Senate, but it should not stop us from getting to the bottom of what is happening with the Biden family, the pay-to-play operation that's been going on, his neglect of the border, and holding him accountable in the People's House of Representatives.
Yeah, and an impeachment process in the House of Representatives moving forward, regardless of what might happen in the Senate, certainly rises to the Nancy Pelosi standard that we saw over the last several years, too. Congressman Cline, on another note, I saw you take to Twitter earlier to comment on Bidenomics, something that the president is actually proud of. And this has to do with the Fed today raising interest rates again. Our economy is still hanging by a thread. States like Virginia, with good leadership from Governor Youngkin, actually seems to be doing okay despite the federal government's policies. But is the Reserve at this point, the Federal Reserve, really just sort of playing smoke and mirrors here to try to make the economy a little more stable than it really is?
Well, the Fed has not been helping us, by responding to the inflation that's out there. Delayed increases in interest rates are having an effect on the economy. The ripple effect is still being felt by Americans at the pocketbooks, in the grocery store, at the gas station. So while it may be declining, it's still a lot higher than it was when Donald Trump was in office. Americans don't forget that, and that's why they're holding this administration responsible for the shoddy economy that we're going through right now.
So do you think the interest rates right now are inflated just to offset the inflation numbers, or do you think interest rates actually are being? I'm not quite sure if I understand your position on this.
Well, I think that the Fed has acted to respond to inflation. When they do, they're usually late to the game. But I do think that they are not very effective at managing or addressing inflation. And that was the point that I was trying to make.
Gotcha. And of course, the White House would tell you that, hey, gas prices have dropped since their highs and inflation is actually improving. They don't seem to actually take those numbers all the way back to the first day of his presidency. Have you noticed that?
I have. And, you go through the amount of increases in prices, whether it's at the gas station or at the grocery store, and then look at whether real wages have gone up accordingly. They haven't. So what you have is essentially a pay cut for the American people that is on Joe Biden's watch, that is his responsibility and the responsibility of the Democrats who voted for the excess spending that we saw over the last 2 years. So we've got to rein in spending. We've got to make sure that we are fiscally responsible, something Congress has forgotten how to do. And that's how we get inflation under control.
Last question they want voters to address is, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Thanks, Congressman Cline. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.